Flags flying at half-mast in Israel this Sunday as the country mourns the 45 people killed in a stampede at a religious festival earlier in the week. Funerals are ongoing, as are the identifications of the victims. Among those killed, several foreigners and at least 10 people under the age of 18. Let's cross live to our correspondent Irris Makler in Jerusalem. Irris, what is this day of mourning looking like so far?
It's definitely a quieter day. It's not just that the flags are at half-mast at all state places, including, of course, the embassies overseas. It's also a feeling in the street. I don't think there's any other discussion anywhere. I was walking this morning and every group I passed was talking about this in some form or other. And what you see, in addition to, of course, the funerals, the prayers for the people who've been injured and are still in hospital or who've been let out of hospital but are still recovering. What you see is reflection, but also some mounting anger as people really are asking their government to look into how this, which is Israel's worst peacetime disaster, how this could happen at what was meant to be a day of celebration.
Yes, tell us more about that public anger and the calls for an inquiry that have been arising after this incident.
Yes, there are calls for an inquiry, and what they want actually is a state commission of inquiry with the power to commission witnesses, to subpoena witnesses, and that includes politicians. So you won't be surprised to hear that the politicians who've been in charge for a very long time now are resisting that option at the moment. So the government is resisting, but the calls are across the board. And the reason is this. This site is a very unusual site in that it's not run by the government, although more than 1 million pilgrims come annually. And for this particular festival, 300,000 to 500,000 can come at any one time. It's managed by a consortium of ultra-Orthodox groups. There are two comptrollers' reports from 10 years ago and a follow-up after that saying that if something is not done, if this method of management is not changed, then a mass casualty event will follow. That in order to avoid a mass casualty event, something must change. So those reports were ignored. Attempts to change the way the place is run have been ignored. So the police have stepped into that vacuum. And the police and how they handled this event, they are on the line as well. But there's a feeling, and for the first time, I've heard ultra-Orthodox people saying this must go into government hands. They can't just leave us here in these massive crowds. Somebody has to run it. That has to be the government. It can't be like this any longer.
So are there any particular plans for what kind of changes could be made? You mentioned perhaps government oversight of the site.
Yes, in fact, I'm going on what the earlier comptroller's report was recommending, and it recommended that ownership of the site, if you like, pass to the government. That they, if necessary, because there's a lot of temporary structures there's a lot of very narrow laneways. They say restructure all of it, make it open. If 1 million people are going to come, make it safe for 1 million people. Have one person in charge, one person that you can go to and say, is it safe? Have the licenses been obtained? At the moment, you don't even need to get a license if you're running that particular event, although it's although hundreds of thousands of people attend. So all of those changes hopefully will make it safer, and the police will have more real authority as opposed to just having risk management. So all of that down the line, if the government agrees and if the government can enforce this.
Thank you, Irris Makler, our correspondent reporting live from Jerusalem.